Welcome to the Esteemed Professional Chat podcast by iSTEMCare. The purpose of this podcast is to bring career stories from the science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics that esteemed professionals from academia, industry, and non-profit organizations who undertook non-traditional career paths in their career journeys. We hope our podcast discussion with these professionals will be helpful for several students and early career STEAM professionals to craft their own career journeys in future. So our guest for today is Dr. Suryesh Namdeo. Dr. Suryesh is currently working as a program officer of the Science, Technology and Innovation Policy Fellowship Program by DST, Department of Science and Technology, that is DST, Government of India. In his capacity, his responsibilities includes the overall coordination of the fellowship program, capacity development of the STI policy fellows, and partnership building. He is hosted at DST Center for Policy Research at the Institute of Science, Bangalore, India. He also conducts his own research in the area of science diplomacy. Further, he is the part of the executive team of the Science Policy Forum, an independent collaborative online platform working in the areas of science policy and science diplomacy in India. He has been the part of various initiatives, including formulation of India's upcoming STI policy, that is STIP 2020. Also, he is involved in organizing various events and leading the social media outreach teams. In addition, he is the part of team managing emerging technology initiative in partnership with the Office of Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India and NEST Division, Ministry of External Affairs. Prior to this, he completed his PhD in molecular biology from Max Planck Institute of Developmental Biology, München, Germany, and Masters from IISER Pune, India. Thank you, Suryesh, for joining us today to share your journey with the STEAM community. And we are very happy to have you in our virtual studio.
Thank you very much, Pawan, for the kind introduction. I'm really glad to be here and excited to, take this discussion with you, and also share my thoughts with other people who will be watching this later. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Hi, Suresh, and thank you so much for joining. So I'll start with the discussion. So first of all, to go about it, I would like to ask, how this transition exactly happened. We would like to know, you were like a bench scientist, like a PhD, and generally what traditionally people do, but then you transitioned to something called as a science policy. So what is the inspiration of this transition? Are there any specific motivations? And when you actually transitioned to this particular field, have you interacted with someone? What is the process? How that interaction went?
So thanks, Rasika. So I was, as you mentioned, a proper bench scientist. I have a PhD in molecular biology and working back there in Germany. During my PhD, I realized, at some point that this is the scientific research, the basic science research is something that I might not want to do for, coming few decades in my life, and I wanted to explore other things. And I was the reason behind that for me personally, I was not feeling kind of meaning that I was looking for to get in that kind of scientific research that I was doing. I started exploring other options, and it was not easy. As you know, these things are not always available, and you don't know about all the resources that might be there related to different diverse career paths that might be there. And so I started exploring. I came back to India after finishing my PhD. I spent a lot of time interacting with different people, going to different places. I went to different think tanks in Delhi and spent time interacting with policy professionals, not only in the science area but also in other areas. I kind of developed an interest in this whole area of international relations and geopolitics. So I thought maybe I should try to combine something that I have an experience on, which is scientific research, with the diplomacy angle, and that's how this whole science diplomacy side of things came about. And I started exploring different opportunities that are there. There are different online courses and workshops and so on. I attended them and did some of these courses. Slowly, I also realized that there is this broader field of science policy, and not only science policy, but science, technology, innovation policy. And India is trying to develop its strengths by building a cadre of professional working in this STI policy area. So I interacted with some people who are working in this area, and they gave me directions towards different steps that I can do, different ways to get involved into this whole process. And slowly I got to know about this opportunity for being this program officer of the STI policy fellowship program, and applied for it and got selected and got here. So yeah, that's the path. As the program officer, right now I'm working at DST CPR, it's an Center for Policy Research at ISTEMCare, and this is where this whole program is run from.
Awesome. Thank you to describe your kind of career journey. So with that, the next curiosity I have about what you do as a program officer in this current role, and how it is like. You can give a contrast between working in a typical lab versus working in this current position.
So as you also mentioned that my roles are very, very diverse. So one is the overall coordination of the program that involves interacting with all the fellows, coordinating things in terms of their academic activities and so on. Also interacting with DST officials who are ultimately responsible for funding the program and so on. Second is capacity development, so organizing various events, activities, courses and so on related to STI policy area. And then this involves inviting different experts in the field already and to invite them to give lectures to the fellows and so on. Also working with the other policy schools. Third part is more about partnership building, so building partnership with different organizations, different policy institutes in India and abroad. For example, we recently conducted this workshop with Science Policy Research Unit SPRU in University of Sussex, a very well established policy school. And this was a joint workshop, and that not only to develop capacities of the fellows, but also it was open to wider public and other people. Many people from STEM areas, the hardcore researcher, actually joined that workshop to get an idea of what the STI policy research is all about. So those are the three major things. And in terms of differences I have, in terms of challenges that I face every day, which are of course very different from what I used to do as a basic science researcher. Now the nature of challenges varies a lot. Sometimes you have a lot of work on one day, and there are a lot of expectations from you to deliver on one day, and then things are sometimes for 2-3 days there is no big challenges of that kind, and a huge variability in terms of new things coming up every day. Unlike when I was doing the scientific research, there was one problem and you would stay with it for sometimes days, weeks, months, and even 2 years with the same problem. So that is the main thing. Like there is a lot more. The nature of challenge is vary a lot, and those variation are on a daily basis and sometimes on hourly basis.
Okay, so that's good to know. So with the continuation of this, like you mentioned about the science policy fellowship program, which are kind of available. So can you just elaborate a little more on it, like how the whole program works?
So this STI policy fellowship program was started by DST in 2016 to build a cadre of policy professionals. So as you know, India has one of the largest STEM researcher base in the world, but sometimes our priorities in terms of doing the scientific research and different aspects of the STI policy, in terms of R&D expenditure that is there, in terms of where should be focusing more research area, what research area we should focus more on, in terms of equity and inclusion, in terms of open science and so on. So understanding all those aspects is very, very important, and DST realized that and started this policy fellowship program in 2016. Right now the call was recently closed for the 5th batch cohort of students. So in this program, currently there are 3 different tracks. One track is called Senior Policy Fellowship track, which is basically someone who has finished a PhD and also already has 3 years of policy experience. And then there is a postdoctoral policy fellowship track, which is someone who has just finished a PhD and can apply for this particular track. And the third is young policy professionals. Here, people who have already had the master's degree in science area or humanities and social science areas also, they can apply for this particular track. So it runs in these 3 tracks. And they are involved in various activities, including, especially for the last batch of fellows, they have been involved. They have been part of this, what is called STIP Secretariat. That is the secretariat which was formed by DST as well as Office of PSA to prepare the 5th National STI policy, of which the draft was released in last December.
Right. Oh, it's good to know that it's not only science but other parts of the other streams are also involved in this. And I can definitely say that it's, although you say it's like a science policy, but policy things is not typically into a science mainstream, and other people are involved. So it's good to know that after masters also, as well as after PhD, there are such fellowship programs which are available. That's a great information.
Yeah, that's really good to learn about. And I think many of the people would get benefited who want to take career exit after PhD. They don't want to pursue research, but go into more of policy work. So with that, I have a quite curiosity. So in this policy kind of, so one fear generally people have about listening. A policy means they think it's a rule. It's a regulation, right? It's something which a lawyer can do, or someone politics or someone with those background can do. So, do you mind describing about what are the kind of expertise is needed to get into policy arena, especially science policy? And the second is, you would also have to interact with totally different kind of people. So what kind of mindset one should have? Because you have to interact with government officials and people who are like clerk and administration.
Right, and it's very different. It's very different from what normally we generally interact, like asking experiments or like asking for just troubleshooting. So how that thing.
Yeah, so that mindset should have, so that the person when goes doesn't get a shock. So I think these 2 things we would love to hear.
So first of all, like in terms of mindset, when it comes to interacting with government officials and other stakeholders, not only them, but other stakeholders, you have to be open. You have to understand they come from a different way of thinking about things. There are different nuances that are there in working of all these organizations and also different stakeholders. You have to understand those things. You need to be humble. You need to be patient at times, and you need to have very good communication skills. So you put your point across at the right moment, in a right way, frame it in a good way. And other than that, I think for kind of work that has gone into formulation of this STIP process, there's a lot of organizational skills that are needed. If you have good organizational skills in terms of working with a team and coming together with ideas and organizing events and so on. All these things are very, very important. In general, I think it's also good to have some understanding of the policy ecosystem in the country, how the policy is actually made in India, different policies are made, how previous policies were made, and all of that. And also to some extent about the policy research. So these are the main things, and one can develop some of these skills by first of all getting involved in activities that are related to your own research impact on society and environment and so on. That would be one way to start getting involved in all of these things. How would you get your point across to the people who are decision makers? So these are some important point also to understand the role of science advice, how we should take the scientific evidence forward to bring it into the policy. Because what happens also, a lot of times many policies, there is enough amount of scientific evidence, but that does not always reflect in how the policies are made, not only related to science but also to other areas. So having a good understanding of all of these things would certainly help someone who want to transition to this particular area.
Yeah, that's correct. So you already mentioned some of the skill sets, right? Like, for example, communicating with each other and like getting your own idea on the table for this. So let me ask one question which is in continuation of that. You mentioned some of the transferable skill set, like communication is one of the key skill set, right? What you should have. Another what you mentioned is the policy research, right? Which you have to do online and something like that. So I would like to ask, so what are the transferable skill sets which you will see, like if you want to go into this kind of career transition? What are the transferable as well as the technical skill set? Because as a PhD, we are more trained to write a grant and manuscripts, but here it demands something, maybe something overlapping, maybe something completely different. So any particular skill set you think that transferable, as well as any scientific skill set, technical skill set which helped you in this transition or moving ahead in this career?
Of course, the most important one, I believe, is the communication.
Yeah.
And if you can communicate your own research work to your grandma or a 5-year-old effectively, I think you have experience with engaging with different kind of personalities. So that is definitely a very important skill set. Also, time management. I think that time management and organizational skills that you learn and practice a lot during your PhD or scientific research in general. So research grant writing also help that. Of course, the language, you have to always change things. So the language in the social science areas are slightly different. But if you have experience of writing grants and writing manuscripts and papers, I think that is a very much of a transferable skills. If you'll just have to acquire the new language and the terminology that goes into social science research and so on. So I guess these are the primary ones. And in general, if you are good with science communication, it's gonna help you.
Can I just interrupt and ask you, whether anyone in this process has asked, how many paper you have published or something? Just curious. People, because when you move into a different career path, the perspective of people can be different. So whether publishing a manuscript or writing your own grant has help, or people do ask such kind of question while moving into a career transition? Just curious.
Yes. So for the policy fellowship program, if you are applying for postdoc position and all, there is a minimum requirement of papers that you should have, and but that is like a threshold. On top of that, you need to have other things, other policy related experience. You should have done certain things in terms of engaging with policymakers or giving scientific advice, or getting involved in activities that affect the environment or the society while working as a scientist. If those things you have, those will also carry a lot of weightage. In addition, papers are more of secondary, if I may dare say that.
Okay.
In this case, if you are coming from a hard science background, but in being involved in all of these things is actually what ultimately matters the most.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion, because many people have thinking, oh, I don't have paper, can I just go into this? That's a very common question, so I was just asking that.
I would, if anyone is interested, I would urge this person to build a profile in this area by attending different meetings, attending workshops, interacting with policy professionals, following the social media handles, engaging with the conversation. If there is government asking for some inputs, so you can try to provide those inputs. So all these things will help you build a profile, and writing some policy articles, some newspaper articles, some science communication articles, those things will help you build a profile that would go a long way in supporting your application if you want to get into this area.
Got it.
The major question we face, that it's like a bottleneck in our mindset about a PhD, a postdoc, that what people will think if I go into such careers, what will happen, and most of the time I think in Europe or US maybe such ecosystem exists which can support one person to such career transitions, but we would love to hear about, since you did in India back then, coming back from Germany back to India, what are the major challenges you had in the journey in terms of even finding resources, finding people, and even convincing yourself like to to transition from a research life to science policy career?
So yeah, I would just like to say it was not easy. It was very difficult, and it took a lot of courage, and you have to have this kind of exploratory mindset that you are not happy with something, that you want to go and try something else, and have courage to do that, because sometimes you don't have even backing from your family and so on, and you have to take those decisions, and sometimes it's dart in the dark. You just don't know where things are gonna go, but it's a leap of faith. You start working in some direction which you find fascinating, interesting at any particular point, and managing all of that. And you see, I was unemployed for more than 1.5 years. Okay, and that was the time when I learned a lot more about myself and the life in general, exploring different things, trying different things, and getting rejected, getting failures, and managing those was very, very difficult. Okay, so the path has not been like something well pre-planned and everything. It was more trial and error, learning from your mistakes, and being open about things, being open to approach people, to learn more, and have good communication skills. All of those things contribute to this path. But now I think now there is more awareness about this particular area in India, at least, because there has been so much communication with the STI policy, the new draft that has come out, and there has been many newspaper articles, and there's a lot of interest in this area. And I think many people now are realizing this is many STEM researchers within India are realizing that this is an area which they would really like to explore. And now the resources are also more available. When I moved back, there was hardly anything, and I had to rely on various online resources, whatever little I could find. But now I think the resources are there. If you go to for example, the PSA office website, the Principal Scientific Advisor Office website, if you go to Science Policy Forum website, if you go to DST CPR websites, all of them have number of resources to give you certain direction. Moreover, a lot of policy professionals are on social media, and we are always interacting with new people, and people are reaching out to us every time whenever they have questions and doubts, and we are organizing all these events, which is also a huge outreach activity. So there is a lot more awareness about these things now than earlier when I moved. But again, it is still you have to be very enterprising to move into this area, and also have the courage to find the right path, and keep on interacting with more people to learn things.
Right. So I mean, you already kind of discussed these are some of the career paths, how we can go ahead. So I was just curious, any particular, you said you can look online and there are some resources. Are there any particular courses or something if someone want to move into this career? So what are the paths, what are the things which you will, for example, now you are at the other side of the bench, right? If someone for me or someone who want to be a part of this particular way, what are the things you will really look for, maybe in your CV or any particular courses you have done, and then you will say, oh, this candidate is really good for moving into this kind of career. So are there any pointers you really look for when someone want to move into this part of career?
So see, STI policy is a huge area, and some people find different specific fields within the STI policy to where they want to specialize in, and they want to work further on. And there are courses available in all those different areas as well. First, there are many courses on Coursera and edX and all these online platforms related to STI policy, and qualitative, quantitative research in social science and so on, which can help you build the initial, understanding of these things. Then there are various think tanks, including in India, you have institutes like the Akshasala institutions and so on, which organize these courses. There are various events organized by different DST centers for policy research, also with PSA office and so on. So there is a lot of material now available online, which you could go and check out if you are interested. Also, as I was suggesting, keep an eye on different things that are coming on the social media handles of all these institutions: PSA Office, DST CPRs, DST, SPF, Science Policy Forum, that is, and India Bioscience, and so on. So keeping an eye on all of these things, and there are many opportunities that are coming up now. So yeah, those are the basic things we can.
Right. So can I just ask another question in continuation of this? So when we say like science policy, science is a very diverse field, right? Like it contains engineering, it contains pharmacy, it contains basic science like you and me. So do you think all such streams can converge in the science policy, or are there any specific, I don't know, like just wanted to understand, are there any specific things about it?
Yeah, any of these fields, and not only from STEM sites, people from humanities and social science side also can move to this. There are also, for example, JNU and Central University of Gujarat have this proper science policy courses. Okay? Mm-hmm. There is a school for science policies, and where they teach science policy as a undergrad and postgrad courses. And so people from all different sides can move in, and people from management side, I know science policy professionals who are from management side, who are from economics side, and who are from hardcore engineering background, who are from hardcore biology or hardcore physics background, and so on. So it's people from all sides, depending on their interest, can transition to this area. It's just that maybe the set of skills they need to acquire to move into this area might be different. For example, an economist or a policy person might need more understanding of science to move into this area, and on the other hand, someone coming from science or engineering background will need to develop some understanding of policy and other things while moving into this area.
Okay, sure. That's good to understand that a lot of diverse people can actually converge into a same field, and it's very good to know that even like arts and that kind of people are actually a part of this. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that there are career options which are opening up in that section of the world, which was earlier missing. So I think people like you would be kind of going to create this bedrock foundation for science policy, being part of it. And I think with new science policy, I have a question about this new science policy coming up out. So is it mean that like there has been science policy like documents in past, like I think this is 4th or 5th one in India. So does government or the policymakers use this rule book to make policies in India? How it works, if you want to put a little insight, because that would help person to understand that what are going to be future avenues, future career opportunities in there.
So yes, so this is the 5th National Science STI policy. Before that, we have had 4 already. The last one was released in 2013. STI policy is, or any policy for that matter, is a framework or a guideline. And based on that, this is like broad idea. This is how we want to go about it, which is actionable, which has some actionable points. That if you want to do this, for example, if you want to increase the R&D expenditure of the country from a certain percentage point to certain percentage point, what should be the strategy to go about it? This is more of a strategy guideline. Okay. Within this, a government formulates different rules and regulations to support this policy or implement this policy. Mm-hmm. Okay, so once the policy comes out, you will have after a while different initiatives by the Department of Science and Technology in this case, or PSA office in this case, to support or implement the policy that has come out. So this is the broad guidelines, but the details of each of the steps and how to take things forward and how to implement those things or how to realize the vision of the policy is something that follows in coming months and years.
Okay.
I think with that, so we have this final question for you. So if people want to reach out to you, our listeners want to reach out to you or the community, what would be the best way to get engaged? Like you have already mentioned, but do you want to just give a final that, okay, if you want to get engaged, go for this, you'll get it?
Sure. I think this is also very important. So please do reach out to me if you are interested in this area. You can email me. My email ID is suryeshk@isc.ac.in. Maybe this would be given in the description of this video. And also social media. So I'm active professionally on Twitter and on LinkedIn. And please get in touch anytime. I would be really happy to engage with people who really want to explore this area. So thank you.
Awesome. I think that thank you so much for giving your time. I know how tiring it is back in India. It's evening, gonna be late evening. So thank you so much for your time and sharing your experience with us and us through this to all STEM enthusiastic or policy related people. And I think definitely gonna be benefiting with this.
Thank you so much, Suresh, for joining.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was great interacting. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, Pawan and Rasika. Really great interacting with you, and looking forward to interacting with more people who might, be following this particular interview.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.